Hi, today I want to demonstrate a top-in filter, and I'm also going to create two parameters and use that as filters. So I want to drag my measure names field from the data pane, and I'd like to put that on the column shelf. And over here on the right, I have the items that I'm going to set up. And I'm going to put the city field on the row shelf. And finally, the measure values from the bottom of the data pane, I'm going to drag and drop that onto text. And you'll notice that Tableau created a measure values shelf for me, and it also added all of these measure fields into my view as columns, and they all have their little headers. I don't want all the fields, so I'm going to drag count of orders off the page. I don't care about discount. I don't care about profit or quantity. So I'm left with 3 columns. And if you wanted to, instead of dragging them off or on, you could use the filters, the measure name filters. And you'll see here it's just a list of my field names. So that's another way that you could control what shows in the view. And now I'd like to create 2 parameters that I can use in my filters. So at the top of the data pane, I click on the drop-down arrow and I say create parameter. And the first one I want to call bottom sales value. And it's a float, that's fine. I'm okay with that. And then I want to create another one. And this is going to be top sales value, which is fine. And the new parameters show up in the bottom of the data pane. And if I click on the drop-down arrow, I can say show parameter. And now the control is displayed on the right here. And I'll do that for the other parameter. And this just means that my users now can go in there and enter their own values for the stop and start range. So now what I want to do is create a filter on city, and it's going to have a condition as well as a top 10. So I'm going to drag the city field to the filter shelf. I'm going to go to the condition tab, and I'm going to say by formula. And this is the formula. And what I'm saying here is if the sum of sales is less than the top sales value and the sum of sales is greater than the bottom sales value, which I misspelled when I set it up, then I want to show that value. So I'm going to say okay here and go rename my field. And it's warning me my parameter name is wrong. Let me go fix that real quick. Just rename it real quick. And I'm going to go back and try my filter on city. Go to the condition tab, formula. Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm going to say okay on this. Again, my parameters are purple, my fields are orange. I'm going to say okay. And that time it is a valid calculation, so it did accept it. And now I have no rows, and that's because I haven't actually set a top sales value. So I'm going to set this to be something like 10,000. In the top right, I entered the value 10,000. And so now I have a bunch of, well, I don't know, maybe 50 or so cities. And I want to edit my filter again. So I'm going to go back to city. And this time I'm going to say I also want a top. So I click on the top tab and I say top 10. And I want to use the field sales. So from the drop-down list, I pick sales. And it defaults to sum, which is okay with me. And I'm going to say okay. And so now you see that I see the top 10 sales that are in that range. And if I come in here and I say my bottom sales value has to be at least 1,000, actually 1,000 isn't good enough. Let me try 6,000 so you can see a difference. Oops. There we go. That should do it. Yeah, and I think let's try a top sales value of 20,000. Yeah, so now you can see I have sales between 6,000 and 20,000. So that's a filter for 2 values. Thanks for joining.